What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite jobs in all of Final Fantasy, and that is the Blue Mage. How is it implemented in 14? Do I like it? Do I hate it? Do I think it's fair? What are some of its skills? We're going to be talking about that today, so let's get started. And don't worry, I'm not going to spoil the story. The story will probably come later on. Just a TLDR for what it is. Basically, some dude is handing it out in Limsa Laminza. Someone asked you to go and investigate with them, and there you go. You became a Blue Mage. Kind of a cheap way, kind of a stupid, really silly, boring, kind of lazy way, to be honest. But hey, it's there, and that's about it. Then I'm going to tell you about the story. Let's move on to everything else. So, what is the Blue Mage, you might be asking? Well, the Blue Mage in Final Fantasy XIV is a DPS mage, and in the Final Fantasy series, it is basically a mage that has the ability to use monster skills in order to attack and use support. Anything a monster has done in any video game, that's pretty much what the Blue Mage can do to a lesser or greater degree. It depends on the spell. But the Blue Mage can do a plethora of things, from Thousand Needle, from exploding itself, to even something like Terra Flare, and we'll get to that later. What you guys want to know is how is it implemented in Final Fantasy XIV? Its history is derived of using a very powerful spellcaster to use very powerful attacks, like Goblin Punch, or like I said, Explosion, and it can do some support skills like White Wind or Mighty Guard and some other supportive skills, if I could think of any at the moment, but mostly it's a lot of attack skills, and the same thing is implemented in here in 14. Okay, so we want to know what it can do. Like I said before, it can use a plethora of monster skills. Some of it, like Mighty Guard and White Wind, are in Final Fantasy XIV, however, it's a bit different. Well, okay, White Wind's not different at all, but Mighty Guard is. It's very different. Actually, it's a defensive stance. Basically tank stance, but White Wind is like an all-around healing move that doesn't really work in a way of traditional healing moves. It takes your HP and basically spreads it all around, so you could be at, I don't know, 10k health, which no Blue Mage can actually reach, but say you were 10k health, you just use White Wind, and that's 10k health all around, and it's rather quick. However, if you're low on health, then you're looking at maybe like, you know, a good 1000 or good 500 or even 100 HP, and you're trying to White Wind it up, you're not healing yourself. It's gonna take a while, but just know that you're doubling yourself every time. 100, 200 to 400 to 800, that's White Wind. And like I said before, Mighty Guard is basically a tank stance. In terms of other moves, you start out with Water Cannon. They give you that for free, and then there are 14 exclusive moves all over the place. However, you do get Bad Breath, and you do get Thousand Needle, which is also a traditional Blue Mage skill. There are a whole bunch of spells, and all you have to do is look, and that's where we get to how is the Blue Mage implemented in 14. Now, with all of these stupid skills that are stupid powerful at a low level, you're probably wondering, what is the Blue Mage even for? But the point of the Blue Mage is to get it to level 50 as fast as possible so that you can do the Carnival. It's basically side content. It's not a major class that you can use in dungeons, which you can, but you can't go into level 60 or level 70. You're locked in from level 50 and under. And that's okay. It's a solo class, but you don't really solo the class, to be honest. Now, the class is soloable, but you're not really using it solo when you're going into dungeons or doing trials. You need friends, you need people to help you. Either way, you're using the mechanics of an MMO to play this job. So, say you're outside the dungeon, yeah, sure, you can solo to get every other spell that's outside the dungeon, but you're only going to get a little bit over half of the spell book. The other half is dungeons and trials, and that's where the game gets real. The Blue Mage has what I would like to call the 11 syndrome. So you can get a spell by killing a monster, but only after killing the monster once you've seen its abilities. So, say you want to get Thousand Needle, you need to witness a particular cactuar to do Thousand Needles, then kill it. Now, it can be any Cactuar that can do 1,000 Needles, and I've learned this, that as long as the ability is being used by whatever monster, you can learn that ability after you kill it. But the problem is that when you do kill it, you only have a chance of learning the ability. It's not like you will automatically get the move, or the spell, I'm sorry about that. You need to suffer the RNGesus quota, and what I mean by that is, it's random. It's numbers. You can't just get it. It has to be a chance. I've been inside trials over and over and over and over and over again just to get one spell, and that is because RNGesus is the god of Blue Mage. And what I mean by that, I mean literally RNGesus is the god of Blue Mage. This is what I mean by the 11 syndrome. In 11, Blue Mage is insufferable because it gets repetitive over the monsters you have to hunt, and you have to watch it uses its move, which may or may not happen, but once it does, you kill it as fast as possible because it's a better chance to actually learning the spell. And there's 125 spells in Final Fantasy XI, but in 14 there's only 49, so it's a better time in Final Fantasy XIV than in 11. But the point is, the 11 syndrome from 11 is in 14, and trust me, it gets monotonous. This whole thing with learning monster spells has been a tradition since Final Fantasy V, and all the way up to Final Fantasy X, where it's rather easy. Final Fantasy XI has to change it with this whole numbers thing, where you have a chance of learning it, and then Final Fantasy XIV does the same thing. Only it's to a lesser degree. It's very easy once you spend the time, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to learn the spell on the outside of dungeons and trials, but once you get into the trials, and once you get into the dungeons, then it starts getting boring, then it starts getting monotonous, then you're starting to think, why am I still playing this game? It's starting to feel like it's repetitive, and this is where people start dropping off from Blue Mage, and let me tell you, I don't blame you, but I would say stick in there. I'm sure they're going to be doing something with the Blue Mage later on. However, just a forewarning, yes, it does start getting repetitive. You're going to be starting to do party finders, or you're going to be joining parties that is trying to get this particular blue spell, and some people can be quite the a-holes about this. Some people you party with will actually go into the party and get the spell, and once they get the spell, they leave, and when they leave, it may disrupt what you're trying to do in terms of a strategy. There is a strategy that we have right now where people will go into a party and they'll form like a 4-4 thing where there's 4 blue mages and 4 level 70s, go ahead and do the trial, and boom, they get the spell. And sometimes they don't get the spell, but they switch according to what they plan for, like every 5 or every 10, and if they do get the spell, they switch out permanently to stay at their level 70 so the other 4 can get their spell just as well. And that's been the strategy for a while, and that's what I do when I form a party finder, which, by the way, you can find me if you're in the Primal server right now. You can actually find me occasionally doing these blue parties trying to get spells, and in the future I do want to help a lot of people get their spells, and it may take a little while because sometimes it may take hours, and it can take as long as, getting started learning a Savage content, like a Savage trial. It's weird, it's silly sometimes thinking about getting blue spells could take as long as learning Savage content. It's weird, but hey, I guess they programmed it that way. It's not that bad, it just gets very repetitive. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Blue Mage. I really do like the job. It is a thing, it's side content, but it's not major content. You don't have to do Blue Mage in order to play Final Fantasy XIV, and trust me, getting all these spells can take a lot of your time. But when you jump into Blue Mage, my suggestion is to go with friends. You don't have to go solo, even though it's a solo job. It's just easier to go with friends, grind levels, and you'll level up a hell of a lot faster. On the meantime, when you want to go ahead and do trials, I'd suggest starting a party finder or going into a party finder parties just to get the trial, just to get the magic or the spell, and make sure that you have a level 70 that works with the trial. It's not hard. You can also do the hard mode of certain trials to get said spell, so you don't have to do the extreme. As long as the ability is being used by some boss or some monster, you can get the spell. Even though the spell book tells you that you need to go there, as long as you can find the monster that has the spell, you can always go ahead and not go into a dungeon or not go into a trial to get that certain spell. Like me, for instance, I found Planescracker, I think that's what it's called, or Planesbreaker, I don't know, it's that AoE ground thing. I was supposed to go into a dungeon for that, I didn't. I found it really outside in Ul'dah, but in Little Alamigo, but that's just my experience, and that was very unscripted, I'm sorry about that. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. What do you think about Blue Mage? Is there any changes you think that they could do? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Is it repetitive? Is it better than Eureka? Bias? Anyway, let me know in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you this weekend when I do the longest stream I will ever do. Bye-bye.